I'm Logan Crawford, and right now on Spotlight, we're delighted to welcome a talented author. His name is David Ray, and he is discussing his riveting novels. They're called The Warrior Within and Lost Under the Lion's Shadow.
That's
Both
correct.
books masterfully intertwine faith, darkness, and redemption, showcasing the author's deep narrative talent. From uncovering a legacy of modern slavery in Missouri to embarking on a perilous journey against organized crime, the author's characters navigate trials that test their courage and faith, reflecting his profound insights from 35 years in pastoral ministry. We're delighted to have this very talented author join us here today on Spotlight. We thank the team at Atticus Publishing for helping us put him in the spotlight today. And we ask viewers like you to support writers like him by subscribing to our channel and by purchasing his remarkable books. The links are below this interview. David, great to see you here today on Spotlight.
Thank you.
Let's start out by talking about your books. Let's start with The Warrior Within. Let's give the folks at home an overview of what that's all about.
Well, it is actually a sequel to The Lost Under the Lion's Shadow.
Mm-hmm.
The two characters in the first book had lost their spouses and met each other in Argentina fishing, and they get tied up into the dark aspects of organized crime. Mm-hmm. And human trafficking. Mm. And so the second book picks up after that they're now married, and the two books flow together for me, so I have a hard time remembering.
Yeah, it's basically one big story.
Yeah, it actually is one big story.
Right.
And, but they are living in Kentucky, mm-hmm. And they're still kind of looking over their shoulder because in the first book, they ended up finding a boatload of gold, mm-hmm. and they were able to bring it back, and they've started a ministry to attack the human trafficking trade, and they sponsor organizations with this money. And so they kind of look over their shoulders, and somebody breaks into their home. They're not sure what was going on, and then she gets a letter. Rebekah gets a letter inviting her to come to Missouri. That her uncle had passed away, and a lawyer was trying to find her, and so she inherited an old beat up farmhouse and a 100-acre farm there in southern Missouri. And so they found some interesting things out about her uncle, whom she didn't really know. Find that a secret society had been meeting on the property, and so there.
Right. Well, they're compelling stories, no doubt, but I think as a minister, you probably had some lessons in there you wanted some folks to understand as well. So tell us.
One of the things that I read a lot, I always have read a lot, and one day I looked down. There was a stack of books that I had finished, and most Christian books are essentially pastors printing their sermons, right. And I'm not opposed to that. But as I looked at the stack, I realized that there were stories embedded in the sermons, but there weren't really stories. There were sermons. Yeah. And I just felt like, if my men, and even the ladies in my congregations as well, these books would all change their lives. But I was thinking men specifically, men have quit reading. There are lots of men who have told me I hadn't read a book since high school, and I didn't read many then.
Right.
And so I just felt like the Lord kind of tugged on me, write a book that men would read.
Right.
And I started writing, and I honestly did not know what I was doing.
Yeah.
And I wrote, I look back now and I go, oh, the story I think is wonderful, and the characters I think I did well, but there are some things about the writing style that disappointment. I just didn't know what I was doing.
Right, right. But
And
the essence of it is a good, solid story. Maybe there's some things you go back and refine now if given the time. But I think you are hitting on something important there, that in order to get a message across, it has to be within a package that people will look at and appreciate. And
yes,
that's a gripping novel. So
yes.
I think you've certainly succeeded there. Tell us what you mean by Lost Under the Lion's Shadow.
Well, in their adventures, they are kidnapped. They are um, held by the organization, the cartel,
Mhm.
and every time they look around, there is an image of a lion,
Mm.
uh, and they're in a truck being trucked across Argentina, and they look up and there's this cardboard box with a lion
Mm.
image of the business of the box,
Mm.
and and it's just over and over that there's and it begins to they realize we're not alone.
Mm.
Yeah, they're both especially Rebekah, the female. Her faith is somewhat new,
Mhm.
and so in the story they talk about things, and 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 Richard has been a pastor for years, and but it's been a interesting conversation.
Mm.
Uh, but yeah, that's every time they turn around, there is an image of a lion,
Mm. So
and they were
basically symbolic of God or Jesus?
yes,
Yeah,
absolutely,
yeah,
yeah,
absolutely. A lion, not a lamb.
that's right,
Yeah.
yeah.
I've been hearing that a lot from Christian scholars and clergy, that instead of the lamb analogy, they're using more of a lion analogy today because they want it to be a stronger message, right?
Sure. Understand that
Yeah,
absolutely,
yeah.
yeah.
Interesting, interesting. These are also stories of redemption, which of course is the whole story of the Lord Jesus Christ. It's a redemption story. Um, Tell us a little bit about that aspect of your work.
Well, Richard, uh, his wife died of cancer,
Mhm.
and they did not know she had cancer, and her personality changed, and she became mean spirited, and they didn't know why. I mean, she just kind of flipped off, and she told some really horrible stories about him that were not true, and
Mm.
it ruined his ministry. And then they found the cancer, and then a few months later, she was gone,
Mm.
and it was a devastating event. And he was mad at God. He was frustrated. And actually, he decides to go fishing in Argentina just as a way to escape. Uh, and now Rebecca, her husband had disappeared, and he'd been gone for 4 years. And the FBI had told her that he had probably been with his brother, been executed in
Mm.
somewhere in South America. And so they're both hurt. Um, they're not really looking for someone,
Mhm.
but when they get in Argentina, they didn't know each other. They didn't know each other would even be there, but they signed
Mm.
up for a fishing trip
Yeah.
and trout fishing, and they're teamed up together. And so there's a romance that kind of
Right.
buds,
Yeah.
and so yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's a great part of the story as well. Tell us a little bit about your spiritual journey, your work as a minister.
I I felt called into the ministry shortly out of high school, and
Mhm.
I went up to Asbury in Kentucky
Mhm.
for college, and then walked across the street to Asbury Seminary. And the thing about Asbury Seminary, and I look back now, there were professors and students who were academically brilliant, but
Mhm.
loved Jesus.
Mm.
And I look back now, and there's a lot of people that didn't have that experience where they either had the academics or they had the love of Jesus. But
Right.
some to have both of them combined was a very significant aspect in my heart and life.
Mm.
And when I came out, I graduated, and actually the man who had led me to Jesus hired me as his associate.
Mm.
I worked as an associate pastor for 4 years before I took a little church out in the country of West Texas, and then I was a United Methodist,
Mm.
and I was in 3 different churches. And then I woke up one morning and realized Methodist Church had changed.
Mm.
And I just don't belong here anymore. And I didn't know exactly what to do, but I told the leaders of my church that I was, and they said, "Oh, we know, we can see it in your face."
Yeah.
And they're the ones that challenged me and said, "We're going to go start a new church,
Mm.
and we want you to be our pastor." And I said, I don't want to split this church. It was a wonderful church that I was in. I was leading. And it was a fair sized church, but that's what I did. I moved down the street and started an independent. We're still Wesleyan, but we're a little more than that, I guess.
Maybe a little more traditionally Wesleyan than the Methodist Church today.
Yeah, I'm probably more Wesleyan now than I was when I was a United Methodist.
Yep, absolutely. Has been a big evolution in that church, no doubt. Well, we appreciate your work in the ministry, and we appreciate your work on these novels. They're called Lost Under the Lion's Shadow and The Warrior Within. Both books masterfully intertwine faith, darkness, and redemption, showing the author's deep narrative talent. From uncovering a legacy of modern slavery in Missouri to embarking upon a perilous journey against organized crime, these characters navigate trials that test their courage and their faith, reflecting the minister's profound insights from 35 years as a preacher. And we appreciate his time here today on Spotlight. David, thank you so much for joining us here today.
Sure. It's been my pleasure.
Great speaking with you. And to the folks at home, I'm Logan Crawford, thanking you for your time this time until next time on Spotlight.